Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Serving Up Success with a Splash. I'm Angie Snowball, and this is my lively co-host, Bruce Cramer. Say hi, Bruce. Oh, we gotta take yourself off mute. But did you catch his moves?
Okay, hold on. I think I'm still muted.
No, you're good now.
Okay. Thank you for joining.
Yes. Thank you for joining. Thank you for coming back. We're happy to see everybody here. Dr. Nawtej is not with us today. Apparently, flying to Portugal to check out vineyards was more fun than us. I don't think so, but that's where he is. He's literally in the airplane. But we do have a surprise message from him somewhere down the road here. And as always, let's start with the splash. So this week's episode is going to be about creating conversations. Not everybody is like Bruce and I and can't stop talking. Some people have trouble starting talking or keeping the conversation going or having different styles, and then they feel awkward and they get quiet. I mean, it's foreign to Bruce and I, but we get it. So we're going to talk about creating conversations. And so whether you think you're good at small talk or maybe if you think you're great at small talk, I really think everybody will pick up something because we're talking on both ends of the spectrum here. So first and foremost, though, the drink. Caipirinhas. I found this through my German buddies, actually. It's a Brazilian drink, and then the Brazilians showed me how to make it a little differently. But the recipe is basically you cut up one lime, you take some cane sugar, so it's gonna be like some type of brown, like larger sugar, and you muddle those together with something like this little squisher guy. Um, and then you just put in 2 ounces of cachaça, which is a Brazilian rum, and it does not taste like our rum. So no, it cannot be Captain Morgan's. It has to be cachaça. There's 51 and P2 are some of my favorites, but they were really hard to find. Pour that in, put some ice, and voila, you have a delicious, refreshing summer drink. So now
Cheers.
yes, oh my gosh, I can't
Cheers.
believe I almost had bad luck not cheersing. Okay, so we're gonna jump in to the communication skills, create conversation type of stuff now that we're all having fun and we're drinking. Again, don't forget, you're more fun, we're more fun if you have a cocktail. So join us with that. And also, this is just more fun with you. So if you have questions, if you have conversations, anything you have to say is more important or relevant than what Bruce and I have to say. So chime on in, comment in there. We're excited to hear from you. But going back to communication, so I think most people know me as the LinkedIn lady, but I do also communication coaching and consulting. And as that coach, I know that one of the most popular things to teach are the 3 C's. So I told Bruce, I was like, what do you think the 3 C's are? And what would that mean to you? And that I have no idea what he's going to tell me. So this is going to be fun. Uh, Tell me what you
Well,
think the
I
three C's to communication are, Bruce.
I saw it in the brief description, so
Oh,
I had to look. But as usual, I have a differing opinion.
okay.
And so I do agree with being clear and concise. And part of the reason why I agree with that, it's been a lifelong challenge for someone like me that can talk a lot. So being clear and concise is always top of mind. But one of the things I've noticed, and a lot of this I've groomed at cocktail parties. I love a party. So it doesn't
Me
have to
too.
be a cocktail, any party, football,
Yes.
whatever. But one of the things that gets me really comfortable, and I believe it's, in my opinion, the most important of the 3 C's is curiosity.
Oh,
If you
that is a
go,
good one.
walk into a room, a bar, I don't care where you are with a group of people, just be curious. Just look around and go, God, that person looks interesting, or this group of people seem to be having. If you lead with curiosity, it makes the idea of conversation so much easier because it's not about you impressing anybody or whatever. You're really just curious to meet these folks or this individual.
Yeah, and
So
you're
that's
giving
how I
them an
would,
opportunity to
yeah. So
talk to
that's how,
you, you know?
yeah. So I say clear, concise, and be curious.
Yeah, I like that way better. The three C's, well, you do see them different ways. So you see clear, concise, totally agree. And correct, that's an interesting one. But sometimes you see consistent. But I think what's most important about the three C's is they really don't matter. I mean, they're not relative. They're not, it's the last thing I start with. I hate when people walk in like, I have an agenda. This is what I'm going to do. How do you know what I need? You don't even know me yet. So I never actually start with the three C's. I throw them out the window. I think the most important thing if you want to create a conversation is to listen not to respond but to understand. So listen to understand. And what's interesting is that makes the shy guy in the room probably the best conversationalist. They're afraid and I think the problem is they think they're not because like, oh, I don't really like talking. I'm not really sure about this. But I think they have the best conversations, don't you, Bruce? Because they
Eh,
listen, they observe, they have information to have a quality conversation versus me, who's God knows what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. And whether you're networking professional or again, you're at that party, I personally, the people that are shy, um, I actually like to engage with them because there's always, there's always a couple of us at the party,
Yeah.
or there's that person that just can't shut up. And so I want to say to all of the shy folks that are listening to this, you're a primary target at a networking vet, whether it's people
Look
like
out. We're
that to
coming
make
after
us
you.
comfortable. Um, and so, and I'll talk a little bit more about that because a big part of communication uh, to be successful is your presence.
Yes, to be
And
in the moment.
yes, and the nonverbal. And one of the interesting stats that's always been thrown at me is that 7% is related to the words you use. So for all of you out there that are shy and like, oh shoot, I hope I don't say anything stupid. Trust me, I've been there, done that. It doesn't hurt you because only 7% of someone looking at you, evaluating whether this is going to be a good conversation, only 7% has to do with words.
Yeah, it's all about like one big thing is making eye contact and keeping it. Like most good conversations start with eye contact, especially if you're in a big room and you don't know who you're going to talk to. It's really just look around, trying to find some common ground. You know, maybe it's that you like somebody's shoes or you have the same kind of hat. Maybe they're wearing a sports team thing and you can ask the open-ended question. So to me, that's where communication starts. Talking is the last piece. Talking is the last piece of communication. First, it's listening, it's looking around, and it's learning about the people. So you can ask open-ended questions. That to me is a key to open-ended questions. Because I mean, I also had a teenager. Bruce and Noel collect children. I think they have six. So we've been through, but I know going
Well,
through a
there's truth to
teenager.
that.
As a teenager, having a teenager, the worst thing you can do is, did you have a good day? Yeah. Did you learn something? Yeah. Like you have to ask open-ended questions, and that goes for all the world, I think. Do you have that same experience, Bruce, when you're talking with somebody, the difference between asking yes, no, and open-ended?
Yeah, well, naturally, as a coach, um, we're heavily coached that it's all about open-ended questions. The other thing I want to add in there is also your tone. If you
Yes.
just, if you're upbeat, people can detect in your tone, oh, this is safe. And again, for the folks that are shy, you come across as being safe, because you're not dominating, and you're not intimidating. And so, if you have a nice tone, people are going to lock in. The
Yeah. And
only
a
other thing
smile.
the only other thing I'm going to add to that is 55% is body language. So do you bring energy? And again, back to Angie, a big part of people describing somebody that's energetic is they really have that level of curiosity and authenticity
That's
that
why I
they
like
want to hear
curious.
about you.
Yeah,
They
that's why I
just
like
they,
curious. If I do use the
yeah,
three
they
C's again, that's what I'm using.
yeah, but again, the energy is that you're willing to listen. You're
Oh,
really
yeah.
engaged. So 55% energy, 35% tone, 7% words was a study that was done on this a decade ago and holds true today.
That's so true. I will say though too, I was working with this lady once. She's if she's listening, she'll know who she is. But I was talking about smile. We did a whole workshop on body tone. It was a organization that was struggling to keep their team together. There was a lot of arguments, fights, and disagreements. And I said, again, we talked exactly what you're saying. Like 90% of this is another thing I say, people hear how they feel, not what you say. So you really have to pay attention because you might say something that comes, you can say, hi, how's your day? And you'll be like, oh my God, why are you asking me stupid questions? Right? I mean, because they're not feeling good. They're having a bad day. You can say, hi, how's your day another time. And then they're all excited and they're like, oh, it's great. You know what I mean? So, but that body language is so important. And I want to give the surprise message from Nawtej here. So I'm going to cut myself off and we'll come back to body language after because something else we need to talk about, resting bitch face. That's a huge problem. And there's a lot of people that have it. So, but so Bruce and I talk all the time. We can't stop talking is our problem. And we definitely wanted to have Nawtej share what his side of the story is here. So we brought a little video that I'm going to share, hopefully.
Tips about this. Because when I walk into a room full of strangers, whether it's a professional event or a party, a fun party, if I don't know anybody, more likely than not, I'm going to just be quiet in the corner. I'll drink my glass of water very slowly. And if I have a glass of wine, I'll drink it too fast. And I'm slightly uncomfortable. I don't really have the wherewithal to start a conversation. Sometimes I'm lucky. Good to say, I don't know, 10% of the time I'm lucky that somebody comes up and talks to me. Or sometimes just as I'm walking into a room, something will happen where I have to talk to somebody and then it's okay. But starting a conversation myself, whether it's a professional event or something like a party or a fun party, yeah, that's difficult for me. That's where all my introverted tendencies will come out, where I don't know anybody.
So I'm going to ask you one more question, and you can tell this isn't scripted, but my husband, and I'm going to throw him under the bus. That's okay. He's married. He can't go anywhere. He's a lot like you too. And one of the things that I told him when we started talking about it was, don't be anxious. Don't worry about it. Like, I think it's a wonderful skill to not talk. I think it's a wonderful skill to observe and to listen. And that I truly believe the right conversation will come to you, or the right conversation starter will come to you because you have been observing and listening. What would you say to that kind of advice? Does that sound ridiculous to you? Or does that sound like, oh, I don't know, maybe it's not a bad thing that I'm the quiet guy?
So I think that's good advice. And here's why I think it's good advice, because if I tried to take on somebody else's tips, it would backfire on me because I don't really do small talk. I'm incapable of doing small talk. So it's much better advice for me to tell me well, if you haven't been talking, you've obviously been observing, which I have. And of course, then if you're observing, that could be the basis of that, or something in that observation could be the conversation starter. So I hadn't thought about that before. And I'd love for you and Bruce, because obviously I'm going to watch the recording of the show. I'd love for you and Bruce to fill it with tips about how I can just start those conversations, but being true to my personality, where I can't do small talk.
Okay, so that was what Nawtej had to say, and Bruce and I are going to fill you with tips after we come back from the break.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Okay, we're back. I was looking for your moves there, Bruce. I missed them.
I was a little slow.
So, Nawtej, I just wanted to share because I thought that was so funny that he's so different than us. We actually had a really good conversation, but I cut it down to last pieces. And one thing he said was, you have to be true to yourself. So in communication coaching, that's what is one of the biggest challenges is you can't give a list of things to do. You can give thoughts and themes, but you can't say do this. So going back to the lady before, she definitely had resting witch face. And she knew she did. Like she told people, she's like, just so you know, I like you very much. I just have resting witch face, and that's what I do. So instead of like, she's like, if I changed it, people would think something's wrong. She's like, that's when people would be scared. So I think there's a lot to be said about trying to keep your authenticity, both with what you're saying and what you're doing. Nobody expects Nawtej to like run into the room and take over the party. But knowing, and again, going back to our first episode, awareness, right? Then we know that's, I think, why Bruce and I like to pick people off the walls. Because I know that I know people like that, and I know that they're probably going to be the most interesting people in the room. You just got to get them started. Would you say that, Bruce? Would you agree?
Absolutely. I I wanted to come back to, we talked a little bit about how you show up. You're nonverbal. Are you bringing a positive energy with you? The other thing is, the nonverbal, of course, and when you're in a conversation, is be very much aware of that as you're speaking, because next week we're going to do a much deeper dive around the different personality types and how they would prefer to be communicated with. But understand, you can pick up without any of that knowledge. If you got somebody you're talking to and they're rolling their eyes, yeah, it's probably a sign that maybe you're talking a little too much. But pay attention to everyone else's nonverbal to really hone in. Are you actually being heard? And then, as Angie pointed out, the biggest tool in the box is listening. If you're a
Yeah.
good listener, people are going to talk.
Yeah, listen and observe. So that's another thing. Like when you walk into the room for a conversation starter, look around, find common ground, because there will be something. Maybe it's their hair, maybe it's their shoes, maybe you can tell by the way someone dresses that they're more like you or less like you, or at least in the same mood as you or not. So I think observing also helps you find that common ground to start the conversation. And don't be afraid to use cheesy stuff. I mean, I remember during COVID when it was getting bad. Well, it actually wasn't even getting bad. It was like 2 weeks in. And I told my husband, I'm like, oh my God, if I don't meet a stranger, I'm going to lose my mind. Like, I just can't stand not talking to people. And everybody talks back to me. I don't know if they like it or not, but I enjoy it. But it's interesting. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, it can be a guy who's totally opposite me sitting there eating popcorn, and you can say, "Hey, how's the popcorn? Is it stale? Is it good? Should I get some?" So anything, if you're observing, these little observations can be the beginning of a conversation starter, you know? So I think those are important things to do. The next thing that I think we should talk about. So we got tone, we got body language, also the type of language, especially in business. Don't treat your clients like they're stupid, but also don't talk over them and talk about LTVs and SQLs and TPS reports when they don't know what you're talking about. Or if you're a teenager, don't tell me skibbity, because I have to Google that crap and know what that means. So know who you're talking to so that you're meeting them at the same level, because if, again, people hear how they feel, not what you say. If you make them feel stupid, that's not going to be a good thing. So pay attention to your audience in that way too. Okay, Bruce, thoughts on that?
Well, you don't want to correct, you don't want to interrupt, and you don't want to come across as being judgmental, either. And often people, the first thing they say to you, and again, professionally at a networking like a BNI or a Chamber of Commerce meeting, or at a cocktail party, what do you do? What do you
Oh,
do? You
such a
know,
stupid question.
and
Don't ask it.
and you could take a lot of bad information from that response. I think a better thing to say is, what do you enjoy most about what you do?
Love it. I
That
love that
that is,
question.
yeah, I can't remember who told me that. I had, well, we still have as friends. We haven't been together now in about 3, 4 years. But these folks were broker of people. They had parties for the sole purpose of bringing people together. And,
Yep.
Noel and I developed many relationships outside of their circle just by getting to know people, and then they introduce you to more people. But they are very good at, they're the ones that say, what do you enjoy most about what you do? Or they're not afraid to walk up and say, oh, hey, that's a really cool shirt. Um,
Yeah.
the other thing
Where
they
did you
do,
get it? That's the
yeah,
other thing. Don't fall, just throw it out
yeah,
there, because that's sometimes the missed piece of small talk. That's a really
yeah,
cool shirt. The end. It's a really cool shirt. Where'd you get it? You know,
yeah.
that kind of stuff.
And the other thing is, stay away from why. And I've
Yeah.
learned this the hard way, especially if you're in a conversation and you don't really know the people well yet, and it gets into something like politics, religion, and, and typically you'll be like, well, why do you think that? That will
Before you know it, you want
elicit,
to jump
yeah,
ship. You're like, oh, this
that
is a bad idea.
that'll elicit. It's a better way to say, why did you do that? Is, how did that shape your thinking? Or, use terms like how and what versus why. Why comes across much more judgmental. So you stick with, well, how did you arrive at that?
Yeah,
Versus,
I
why
think.
the hell do you think that?
Yeah,
There's a
exactly.
big
What the
difference.
hell's wrong
I've
with
done
you?
both, so I could speak from experience.
I could totally see Bruce sitting there going, what the hell would make you think that?
Yeah, that's on the inside.
That's on
I'm
the
going, are
inside.
you nuts? But
Oh
I,
my
you
gosh.
know, I got to tell you, when you change that up, again, it's about respect too, because who am I to say, are you nuts? I may be saying
Yeah.
that on the inside, but again, remember curiosity. I'm curious as to why you think so differently about that. But I'm not going to say to you, why the hell do you think that way? I'm going to say, how did you arrive at that? How do you
Yeah.
think
See, that's a
about
whole different
that?
question. That's a whole
Yeah, it's a
different
whole
question
nother.
to ask.
And guess what? Having been around since dirt, my mind has changed where I've had a hard and fast opinion. It's changed because somebody has asked me that. And so when I had to say, well, why, I can answer that quickly, and it'll be defensively and it'll be more in your face. But when they say, how did I arrive? Well, now I got to really think. And just
Yeah.
maybe as we engage in this conversation, my thinking is now going to change because I'm not projecting an opinion. I'm trying to listen and understand how they actually arrived at a different opinion. And that opens the door for learning.
It does. It's so crazy how those small words will change it. Again, how was your day? What was the best part of your day? It's a positive question versus if they had a bad day, you might not want to hear that answer. That's the other thing. Don't ask questions you don't want to hear the answers to. So you need to be careful that you're like opening them up, because sometimes I think that's why people are afraid of small talk. Like, oh, what if they say something I don't agree with? What if they say something I don't like? Well, crap, that's going to happen. Not everybody's going to say something you like. Another trick to that, if they do, redirect it. That's something that people don't think about. But if they say something you don't like, say, oh, I never thought about it that way. Have you ever tried and start something else? Like, have you ever, I'm going scuba diving this weekend. Have you ever been scuba diving? Redirect it if they say something you don't like. One thing I love now with email, at least, because if I'm mad, I am like definition of redhead mad. I mean, I am pissed off, get out of the way. You might want to run. It doesn't happen a lot. Like, it's so rare. But when you do, I mean, just ask Jack and like, get out of the house. But if I'm writing an email, it's so nasty. And I used to tell people, like, just don't send it, sleep on it and come back to it. But now I put it in Chat GPT or Gemini. I'm like, hey, can you make this nice? It does it for you. But I think that's interesting that even with AI, we talked about last week how AI isn't intelligent yet because it doesn't think, but it knows tone. Like, you can tell it when you write prompts, you have to tell it the tone, whether you're doing, positive, negative, neutral, professional, personal. So I think that's really interesting. That another thing, like if you're struggling writing wise, communication wise, these tools are available now, which are amazing. Instead of, hey, can you read my email every time before somebody sends it?
I put a word of caution out there because, there's a lot being written about conversation being a lost art. And, I have kids that they'll text each other across the table. I mean, they'll literally be in the same room texting. And while there's a place for email, texting, that sort of communication, straight to the point, certainly it has made us a lot more productive. Conversation, make no mistake about it, is still the number one tool to building meaningful relationships, sharing ideas at a level that everyone not only understands but can engage. And it's still the best way to learn. For
Oh,
all the
100%
things,
agree.
we've said is that when you're in a live conversation, even via Zoom, thank God for Zoom, because it allows us to do this. There is so much you're taking from one another, again, going back to the nonverbal, going back to the tone, that it makes the whole experience far richer than a text or an email could ever achieve. However,
And there's
keep in
like that.
mind, they all have their place and they do make us more productive. But if you really want to grow and exceed and succeed, you gotta be good at having conversation for
Conversations.
multiple
Yeah,
purpose.
I agree. Like, I would never script a conversation with, Chat GPT, and they do that, right?
Oh
So,
yeah. Oh, unfortunately.
oh, message why, go through 1 minute to break. Does that mean we're breaking now? I don't know. There's messages coming. We're not sure what's going on. We have a wonderful producer, Jesse
Yep.
Servin. Sorry, she's awesome. Oh, okay. So we are going to go to break. We're going to cut and come back. But I do agree with him. Eventually he says things I don't like, but that one I do. So we're going to go to break and we'll talk more when you get back.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
It's the drink.
That's hilarious. It's the drink.
It's starting to
Drink
hit
more
home.
Caipirinhas. I will tell you though, those suckers sneak up on you because they're very sweet. So that they do sneak up on you. They're pretty good. And you can put some sparkling water in there if it starts to sneak up on you. I love those drinks where you put water in it too, because I feel like it's good. I'm hydrating while I'm dehydrated. It balances each other out, right? But when we left, we were talking about the art of conversation. And one of my favorite quotes of all time when it comes to communication is George Bernard Shaw. And he says, the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it's taken place. And I think with texting, there's so much missed. You think you're communicating, but there's so much missed in that, especially when you're just emojiing crap and you're not even answering me. I'm like, is that a yes? Is that a no? Or are we doing this at 3? I mean, even logistics can be lost, but definitely when you're just putting those little words in text, I mean, you lose so much. And like Bruce was saying, the energy, there's something that you'll never be able to put into words that's so different. Bruce and I had spoken more times than I could count before I met him in person. We have a great time together. We always laugh. We always have a good time. But I saw him in person and it was just a totally different, way better, which I didn't think it could get better vibe. It was just like, this is exactly what I thought it would be. And there was nothing said differently. Nobody wasn't the person we met. Everybody's totally authentic in this crew. It was just this undescribable thing of the energy of being in person and having conversations in person. So Bruce, you're dead on with that. Like,
Well, thank you. The feeling was mutual. But one of the things we haven't talked a lot about yet is people will remember how you made them feel. That's how they remember. One of the things, I teach sales teams, and this is a fact. I'm not making this shit up. This is a fact. People buy emotion. They use logic to validate why they're going to buy, but they buy strictly on emotion. You could put all the facts and figures you want around a particular product or service, but they're basing it on emotion. And then as they close, as they get ready to turn over the dollars, they validate using logic. Well, if that's true, and it is, I'm here to tell you, they buy on emotion. What does that come down to?
how you
Are
made
you
them feel.
likable? Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Do they like you?
And what makes you likable? What makes you likable is that they feel good around you. And how do you do that? Letting them talk, asking them questions that make them want to share information about themselves. And the body language, like keeping yourself open, like you're not going to be judgmental. Because if you go in there with resting bitch face and say, I'd like you to tell me about your day, I would be like, yeah, you can frog off. I'm not telling you anything and you scare me. But so if you go with a good tone and you're asking people good questions, they're going to open up to you. And that's how you're going to make them feel better, is telling them, letting them give you answers and teach you. Everybody likes to teach deep down.
Right.
Everybody wants to be able to help somebody deep down. Well, if you're not, I don't want to meet you. But most people, I think, really are like that.
And the other thing is be vulnerable.
Yes.
It's okay to say, oh man, I struggle with that. Or God, can I'm not tracking. I'm not sure I understand. Be vulnerable.
Oh, 100%. Ask more questions. That's how you get
Right.
started with really conversations. It may start with one, but keep asking more. And don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry, I have no idea what that is. We were talking about the podcast, and I was like, man, we're so different. I'm like, especially Nawtej. I'm like, he's going to talk about some I don't even know how to ask the question to. I was like, just ask it. Just put it out there and say, I have no idea. Can you put that in English, please? So, um, but yeah, I think that's really a really good point.
Yeah, well, now I lost my train of thought. I mean, the doctor is pretty damn bright. I mean,
Mhm.
I would never get in a pissing contest with him. He'll bury me. As one of my professors said, never get in a pissing contest with a skunk. That would be that would
That's
be
good advice. Let's
that
write
would be
that
the
one down.
doctor. If it comes strictly intellectual. But going back a little bit, and I did lose my train of thought, so bear with me here, is this whole thing around likability. But that comes from having the mindset of never having a conversation based on what you know. Have the conversation based on the importance of learning.
Yes.
Because, we all know the know-it-alls. And, I'll be honest, I don't take them as a client. I
It's
don't.
so
Because if you
weird. I
know it
can't
all,
stand
you
it. I
know,
know. I'm like, why?
I,
I
you
actually
know
said to
what?
somebody the
Life's
other
too
day.
short. You have
Exactly. I
all
was
the
like, you don't need
answers.
me.
Yeah. And what's important to be successful in life is the ability to learn. And I mean, God, since I've been in school, the planetary system is different. The way they do
Yeah,
long
poor
division,
Pluto left. And then he came
yeah.
back. I
I
don't even
mean,
know if Pluto's a
so
planet or not. Like he can't make up his mind. What's going on? It's
and this is
crazy.
why I love AI, is because what you know today is outdated within 6 months. And this and this in this
Good
day and
advice, folks. Write
age,
that word down.
what you know today is gone in a lot of cases in 6 months. So it's important to keep learning. Well, think of that every time you have a conversation. Yes, will you impart knowledge and will you share your perspectives? But always, it's the curiosity and always listening for the opportunity to learn.
And
And
you're
this
only
is
going to
why
impart
people,
knowledge
yeah,
if
people
it's
will say,
relevant, if
yeah,
you're
Bruce,
listening.
yeah, absolutely. And people say sometimes I talk out both sides of my mouth. That's because somebody just influenced me. They changed my perspective because I do listen for the sole purpose of learning. And I'm curious. I mean, I am, especially if you have an opposing view or you say something that now you got my curiosity. But by having that mindset, that conversation goes totally different.
Oh, Bruce, we have a comment. This will make you feel better. Somebody says, I do that all the time, Bruce. Every time in the midst of a word and my tongue decides to go on its 15-minute break, I just blah, 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 right on track.
Let me tell you, sometimes it's more than 15 minutes. Um,
That kind of reminds me, that comment made me think of too. I think a lot of very, very intelligent people hate small talk.
yeah, let
And they
me,
hate it. Oh, go ahead.
I
I
just
was just
saw,
gonna say
I
they
do
hate it
not
because
think Dr. Nawtej is a skunk. I just
no,
saw, I'm
we did
panicking.
have that one.
I love the
No,
man to death, and he's
yes,
anything but a skunk. But
yeah.
the context of that comment,
I didn't
never
see
getting
that
a
one.
pissing contest with a skunk is because
Yeah,
they're really good at it.
yeah,
So
very
my
smart.
my context for that was if I'm in a debate, unless I know I'm pretty seasoned, I stay away because he has so much knowledge. He's an incredible human being when it comes to intellectual capacity. That's how I meant that. I
And
love Dr.
honestly,
Natej.
that kind of cues up what I was gonna that kind of cues up what I was gonna do was really smart people, because Natej doesn't think he's good at small talk. If you ask Bruce and I, we would not agree. I feel like he's a
Oh,
great conversationalist.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think very smart people, very, very intelligent people and this goes into the personality styles that we'll talk about next week. Um, they put too much pressure on themselves to say the perfect thing. And that's why they're more quiet about it. I remember I taught English to business executives for years. And number one thing they wanted to learn was small talk. And you can't really teach small talk. You can give tips, you can do whatever. But the biggest thing, and it was all the same challenge, they would panic because these people were extremely intelligent. They were traveling the world, setting up automotive plants and doing new things. And the reason they couldn't do small talk is because they would panic that it wouldn't be perfect. And small talk, by definition, is imperfect. There's no plan. It's just trying to listen and learn and go with the flow. And I think that's sometimes why very intelligent people struggle with small talk, because they put too much pressure on themselves. Whereas like, we really don't care. I don't care what you say. I want to hear, I want to hear you talk. So
It's kind of like this podcast.
It's kind of like this podcast. I just like to hear myself talk.
But now back to, but this is how you learn best, is when you're comfortable, you feel safe, you're not trying to impress anybody, you're just being who you are and carry on a conversation respectfully. That is the best way to learn. And it's interesting, you know, I was fortunate to be able to attend, you know, one of the #1 universities in the country. And it wasn't, you know, and I thought these professors, they were all in the top 1 or 2 in their field. But you know how they taught? Through conversation. And I mean, it was just, they did not sit there and project at us their knowledge. They
Well, think about it. That's how people always learn. Storytelling. That's a big
Yes.
part of learning. Storytelling is simply conversation. And that's what people remember.
Yes. And even on, you know, stats and stuff, there was always the element of, well, how do you feel about that? Or what do you think about that? And they were looking not for a right answer. They were just looking for a good train of thought that would create more conversation. So pretty soon, all 70 students in that class were engaged, but it was conversation.
That's awesome. Bruce and I were talking about this before we hopped on about learning, because we all have like online courses. I have a lot of LinkedIn online courses, and they're creating some online courses and PMO pods and stuff. And you have to do it in bite-sized chunks, because people don't remember unless they have the chance to go back and do it, to talk about it. That helps us remember. Otherwise, how many times have you been to like a lecture or even like a documentary? Like, I will watch a whole documentary and I'll maybe remember 2 or 3 things because it was part of the story. The rest of it, I'm like, I have no idea what kind of brick that was, but I know that that dude fell off the wall. You know what I mean? So like, that's what I'm going to remember. And I think a lot of people work that way. Through stories, they're easier to remember. Conversation makes everything easier to remember. Okay, we are going to head off to break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more because we like it. So Jesse, whenever you're ready, we are ready for break.
Send your questions.
Yeah,
Send your
send a
questions.
question.
During the pandemic, if you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Ready to serve up success with a splash? Hi, I'm Bruce Cramer, aka the corporate cockroach.
I'm the Renaissance woman, Angie Snowball.
And I'm your strategy doctor, Dr. Nawtej Dosanjh, inviting you to serving up success with a splash.
Join us as we shake things up with real talk and real strategies centered around awareness, action, and accountability.
And yes, there really is a cocktail involved. Please join us and sip your way to success.
Serving up success with a splash, where wisdom meets happy hours. Cheers! Cheers!
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
It's going down smoothly.
Oh, yeah, I think you're winning. I think you're beating me.
Mm,
All right. I hope
mm.
everybody else is having their drinks. So, yeah, I'm just making sure we got most of the stuff we wanted to talk about. So I think, like, in summary, some of the like most important things, talking is a two-way street. Conversation involves listening to understand, not to respond. Communication is not just your words. It's, what is it, Bruce, 7% or something? See, I already
Yeah,
forgot. It told me a
7%.
story about number 7 and what he did. I remember.
A very low percentage. 7% words,
Really tiny part
35%
was.
voice, and 55% the energy, body language you bring.
That you bring
You
it with
know,
it.
something I want to bring up because when I'm working with business leaders and we're talking about members of their teams and stuff, for some reason, meetings, whether it be corporate America, small, medium-sized businesses, when they do one-on-ones, they tend to make those very formal, task-related, performance. The best thing you can do if you want your employees to truly not survive, but thrive, have just simple conversations, not about tasks. What's going on in their life? What do they enjoy most about what they're currently doing? Take the subject off of where are we in percent to go? What did you think about that decision? No. Again, open-ended questions. Get to know them as people. Allow them to be able to express who they are, how they're feeling about things. That's what it's all about. You
Hey,
want a
guess
high
what, Bruce?
performance team?
I get to
Build,
cut you off. I
okay,
thought we were gonna get through and I didn't cut him off, so I had to cut him off. No,
okay.
I just wanted to let you know we have a question. But he's
Oh,
absolutely
okay.
right. That's so important
You're
for.
supposed to say shut up.
I did. I said, hey, guess what, Bruce? I get to cut you off. I thought we were gonna go a whole episode and nobody cut Bruce off, but thank goodness we got it. All right. Then we have a question. So, what is the best way to turn a conversation if you feel the conversation is going badly? So, I feel like one thing, there's two ways a conversation can go badly. It's either subject matter is getting uncomfortable, wrong, going the wrong direction, or somebody's not having a personality mesh. A lot of times that is because people are nervous. And when people are nervous, they talk too much. They're redundant. They say the same thing 10 different times, and this guy gets bored. So first, I think, is decide why. And then if it's subject matter, redirect. I like to use something very generic. It's interesting. That's interesting. And then just ask a whole nother question, completely off base, but if it's personality wise, I think the best way to do that is distraction and find a way that you have to move. Because if you're really in a bad personality grasp, it's not going to get any better. Like they've probably already had your bad energy and you just got to move to good energy. Bruce, what do you think?
Well, so oh gosh, in my career, there have been many times, and sometimes I was the reason for it not going well. I literally will stop and say, is it just me, or does this not feel like it's going well? I
That's
will
good
just,
too. Put
I'll
it on the
lean into the
table.
discomfort and I'll say, is
Embrace
it,
the
and,
suck.
and I take response, I go, is it just me or is this not going well? And then if there's a serious amount of venting, one, I'll shut up and listen, because now I'm saying, hey, listen, is it just me or I don't think this is going well? That's going to open up. Yeah, because blah, 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 blah. I've also been in situations where it got so heated, we just simply call a timeout, And again, as one of the people in the conversation, I'll just say, hey, we are not getting anywhere.
Yeah,
I,
agree to
I think
disagree
we
is a
need
key
to,
phrase too.
yeah, we can agree to disagree, and let's just call a timeout and think about this conversation we're having, and let's come back. Do you want to get together after lunch, or does tomorrow morning work? But I need to think as to how this thing went off the rails. And again, I own it. I'm not blaming them. I'm not saying,
Yeah.
God, you're an asshole. Let's stop this.
That is
No,
not good
I'll just say,
advice. Do
hey,
not tell that person they're an asshole and
yeah,
leave.
I'll just say for
Leave
whatever
blessings.
reasons, this ain't going well. Let's call a timeout.
Yeah. And I like that too. I like to take it on yourself, like saying like, you know what? I think I'm just having a rough day. I'm not understanding what's happening. Why don't we just agree to disagree at the moment and let's try this again tomorrow, and just leave with a good energy that you can. And then never go back. No, I'm just
But
kidding.
yeah, the one thing you don't want to do though is let it go. I mean, if the conversation went bad and you did have to call a timeout, it must be revisited. The conversation needs to occur. And
Yeah.
hopefully, upon reflection, when you come back, the last thing you want to do is just end the conversation and walk away like whatever just happened is going to disappear. No, it won't. It'll fester. And so you always
Especially if
want
it's
to
a
tie it
close
off.
relationship. I mean, even a stranger deserves an apology, but in a close relationship, anything will fester. I mean, you just always have to say, and I have some very uncomfortable stuff with my family, and what we've tended to do is just say, look, you see it this way and I see it this way, and we just have to respect each other's decisions.
Hmm.
That's kind of where that's where we have to leave it, because we can't talk about, but I went back to it and said, look, we just can't talk about this. If we're going to remain close in a family, we just have very different opinions. And if we talk about these subjects, we're not going to get along. We agree to disagree. We just feel differently. I respect your opinion. You have different backgrounds, different thoughts, different experience than I do. My opinion's formed by my background, my experience and thoughts, and I respect that. So even if I don't agree with you or your opinion, and sometimes I'm even like, how in the hell can anybody think that way? I recognize that they own their feelings. They're allowed to feel and think any way they want, and I respect that.
I love it. It does come down to worst case scenario, we can agree to disagree. And if it's a conversation that's prohibiting potentially a decision, it's important in any organization. People understand at the end of the day, decisions do need to be made. Who has the wand to make that decision? It's important that all people are heard, but at the end of the day, that doesn't mean somebody doesn't get to make the decision. So we can agree to disagree, however, the decision, blah, blah, blah.
And I like what you said, everybody deserves to be heard. And I think additionally, it helps to acknowledge that they were heard, especially
Yes.
if you don't agree. It helps to say, I hear what you are saying. I am listening to you. I have a different opinion. I have a different way of seeing it, but I have heard you and I will consider it and I will think through this, because at least just letting them know that they're heard, right? Okay, so we just got our 3 minutes to ending sign. Damn, these things go so quick. They
Well,
really
we got
do.
another question. Okay,
Where
did
is it?
we get another question? I'm reading Shut Up, Bruce. That's our producer, Jesse.
That
Thank
was
you.
the
Bless your
producer.
heart. I knew when you joined the team, you were perfect for me.
Oh, that's funny. No, we answered that question. But if we only got 3 minutes, let's so a lot of stuff we talked about today, just to summarize what it is. When you're in conversations, do be clear, do be concise. Don't say the same thing 10 times. And I like Bruce's, we're taking it, we're hacking the 3 C's. Be curious, ask open-ended questions, go in with positive energy, have eye contact, right? Watch your body language. I think body language is a good one. We can probably do a whole episode on body language if anybody's interested in that. And another one, know your audience. Observe, listen, look, and learn. I'd rather do the 3 L's than the 3 C's. Listen, look, and learn, because that's listening to understand, not to respond. And with that, next week, we are going to talk about DISC personality. So if you're familiar with DISC, I think you'll learn a lot. If you're not, it might change your life. I know that since I learned about DISC, I talk in D, I, S, and C. At my 50th birthday party at a beer garden, there were 8 people at the table talking about, oh, do you think he's a D? That's why that happened. I mean, like going through these conversations. So we're going to talk about that next week. Bruce, we're getting closer. What are your last thoughts for this episode?
You know, okay, I won't take more than always be yourself. Always be yourself. Always share in the responsibility of any conversation that's not going well, because it takes two to converse. Remember, the number one strength of a good conversation is your ability to listen.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
All right. Well,
I'm out.
We're out. That is our wrapping up of Serving Up Success with a Splash this week. Please don't forget to share. Tell people that we don't suck and that we're kind of fun to listen to. If you have questions, topics, let us know. Drop it in there. Subscribe, like, share, do all that jazz. And we can't wait to see you next week when we'll be talking about disc personalities with Drambuie, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
A rusty nail, an old Wisconsin drink. Thank you all for joining. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your week and weekend. Until next time.
Bye.